I like what Osweiler said during his press conference. He said,
"Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to On the Line with Juan Roque. From our studio in beautiful Gilbert, Arizona, please join Juan and his guest Ryan Knowles as they bring the details of ASU sports and put it on the line.
Good afternoon, everybody, on this third day of October. Beautiful Monday afternoon here in the Valley of the Sun. Big weekend in sports. We had a lot happen, specifically the ASU win on Saturday against Oregon State. A fired-up Beaver team came into Sun Devil Stadium, put a good scare into the Sun Devils. After a sloppy first quarter, the Devils were able to rally after a 13-0 deficit and win the game. Definitely a lot of improvement to do for ASU as it contends for the Pac-12 South title. But we'll get to Sun Devil football here in a second. I want to bring in my guest, my partner in crime, my co-host, Ryan the Rhino Knowles. Ryan, great to see you. It's always great to have you, my man.
"Thank you, man. Good to see you."
Yeah, it was a great game Saturday. You know, we got to tailgate. We spent a lot of time with a lot of the fans, and we got a real good feel. There's a lot of support for this team right now, and a lot of energy for the team without question. But not a lot of happy fans in that first quarter, was there?
Well, I can't blame them. I was pretty frustrated myself. I mean, this team's supposed to come out, supposed to really be dominant against a shorthanded Oregon State team, and they just came out with no fire, turning the ball over, pretty careless with the football, just really inexcusable mistakes.
Was it the white helmets, Ryan? I keep hearing it. Was it the white helmets? Everyone on the blogosphere, on Devil's Digest, retire them. One person said put them in the shredder, incinerate them, and then dump them in some field, somewhere else in Tucson or something.
Or are they trying to look like the Cardinals? Yeah,
exactly.
Right. But no. I don't think it had anything to do with the helmets. I mean, it was just just bad mistakes, bad reads, just a lot of sloppy play to start the game, and things that really you kind of have to have ironed out through the course of the week. And Brock Osweiler, I mean, he stepped up and really said in the press conference today, this was on me. I take responsibility for all my turnovers. He's got to be able to make better decisions with the ball. And I mean, give Oregon State some credit. I mean, ASU had been running against their defense all week, and Oregon State showed them a lot of new wrinkles in their defense. Some coverages that they really hadn't run before. They were dropping linemen into coverage, kind of confusing Brock a little bit, and that's really what resulted in those 2 interceptions. And then he's just got to be able to hang on to the ball. That fumble was really inexcusable. Just things that really shouldn't happen on a team that's trying to contend for a conference title. And if they want to take that next step and be the conference champs this year, that's something that cannot happen. They cannot turn the ball over that quickly, or they're going to find themselves in a much bigger hole against a much better team. Right,
and we discussed last week during the show that Oregon State was obviously playing with a sense of urgency, desperate for a Pac-12 win, lost to Sacramento State, some just heartbreaking things that have been happening to the Beavers. Mike Riley now feeling definitely the effects of the hot seat. Had his team ready to play. You're right. They threw a bunch of new wrinkles on defense. We anticipated they would do something like that to get pressure on Osweiler because of their lack of ability to cover all the ASU receivers, and they were able to get pressure. They came out with 4 sacks. One of them was on a blatant blitz that wasn't picked up properly. The other 3 I put on the offensive line. Michael Crichton, defensive end for the Beavers. We talked about him last week. Kid's a redshirt freshman, playing with the intensity, the savvy, the know-how, the mojo of a senior. Had a sack, 8 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and he broke up a pass in the very, I believe the first or second series. I mean, he just jumped up and smacked the ball right out of the sky.
Really filled with that stat sheet, and that's a guy that you really got to contend. You really got to game plan around it and not let affect your offense the way that they did. Just a guy who really came in. High motor, high energy guy who really came in and made an impact, but luckily ASU was able to get the job done and finally really just calm down and just go out there and make the plays they know they're capable of, and just kind of let their game plan play out, and they were able to come up with a W.
Yeah, no, it almost seems like Brock Osweiler seemed a little jittery in that first quarter, maybe because of the first interception, and they had the fumble. The third interception was, I believe, the play to Flugrat. I mean, it was it wasn't a bad pass. It just seemed that Oregon State was reading him. Maybe he keyed in a little bit too much on flu. You know, we talked about Matt Barkley doing that with Robert Woods, and we saw that a lot in USC U of A, where he's just keying in on Woods. It almost seems like Brock fell into kind of the same trap, where he is keying in too much on flu, and then all of a sudden the safety was just able to jump on the ball and make a hell of a play.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of what, you know, we talked about this week. You know, just, you know, flu has really come in, and Ben Brock has established himself as Brock's go-to guy. But, you know, other teams see that too.
Right.
They watch film. They see what, you know, what ASU's trying to do, and they're trying to get the ball in Pflugrad's hands, and rightfully so. I mean, he's really thrived in this offense. But at the same time, though, you gotta go through your progressions. You can't key in on one guy, because that's how turnovers happen, and they did happen.
Yes.
In the first quarter of Saturday night. So that's something that's really got to be shored up. You know, Brock's got to go through his progressions, go look for, you know, from his primary to his secondary targets. Not, you know, if it's not there, you know, something else more than likely is. And, you know, I think that's what he really did on that touchdown pass to Jarrell Robinson. You know, he was looking in the flats for Jamal Miles. It wasn't there. He looks up, sees Jarrell Robinson wide open, and was able to hit him for a touchdown pass. That's what he's got to do, be more consistent in that way, and, you know, just kind of roll with the punches, roll on the fly, and that's which is a lot of what the offense that they run is all about.
Right, exactly. The spread offense is meant to get the ball in multiple people's hands. And it almost seems like sometimes Brock maybe rushes through the progression, maybe because of the superior talent ASU may have. He maybe just assumes there's going to be an open receiver. So I agree with you, Ryan. He does need to follow his progressions a little more patience. But again, it's his first year as a full-time starter. It's only his now 6th game starting. He's only going to get better. So I think we need to be patient and not jump on him too bad. But can't put your defense in that position. You know, that's a heck of a spot to put your defense in.
That skill will come with time. Come with experience. The more, you know, the more games he plays, more snaps he sees. You know, he'll be able to be more consistent in that respect. But yeah, big hole for the defense in. You know, having the ball, having to start on your own side of the field, having to defend.
On 3 occasions.
Like that, yeah, 3 occasions in a row. That's very frustrating. It's very difficult to try to get up for that situation. But they really responded, holding them to only 13 points. I say only, but you know, this was
they could have been 21-0 in a hurry, just like that.
Very quickly. Yes,
and that's a whole different hole to crawl out of.
Yeah,
in the first quarter.
Luckily, they were able to keep them at bay and you know, just hold them to the minimum. You know, I think. The defense as a whole, I mean, I think Colin Parker had another great game. You know, as we get into the defense here, but you know, Jamar Jarrett, this guy,
he had a breakout game for sure. He really came on.
Really lived up to his billing. And you know, I mean, these guys, him and Devon Coleman there on the defensive end outside spots, you know, really stepping up right now with no junior on Yaley. James Brooks, you know, left in the offseason. He was pretty much a starter last year. You know, these guys are backups, and they're coming
like all stars.
They're playing special right now, and I like the way that they're getting to the quarterback, and they're defending the run very well too. They're not, you know, getting outside. They're not trying to, you know, they're not getting dominated at the line by the tackles. You know, they're really just being consistent and steady, and not trying to do too much, and that's really the biggest key to playing defensive end, is not trying to oversell it, not trying to make too many plays, because that's when you get caught out of position, and they're just not doing that.
Yeah,
it's paying off.
What impressed me the most during that first quarter, because let's call it what it is. It was a debacle. It was you heard a lot of 4-letter words in the stands where we were sitting. You know, we got the opportunity to sit next to J.D. Hill. And, you know, J.D. Hill's a minister, and I saw him, you know, kind of smacking his lips a couple of times and just not happy with what he was seeing. But
don't blame him.
Exactly. I'm not going to say he said a 4-letter word, but I think the people around him definitely were. But just to see the way the defense was able to respond. You know, when I was at ASU, they called that put out the fire. Whenever there was a turnover and the offense gave the ball to the defense, our defense immediately took the field, yelling, put out the fire. Basically, the goal was 3 and out or force the field goal, not let them get into position to score a touchdown. They did it on 2 out of the 3 occasions, and I got to give Craig Gray his credit. I mean, that's not an easy place to call a defense, especially after a deflating play. You know, the fumble, the 2 picks. obviously mistakes that could have been avoided, and for the defense to go in and respond the way they did, it's a tribute to them because the team did settle down. After that first quarter nightmare, it was back to the same old Devils. They were able to be consistent again, quick striking on the offense. I mean, I would like to see them establish longer drives, but definitely you got to admit it's a quick scoring offense, where in the second quarter it was just a completely different turnaround. They scored 3 touchdowns on successive series, took 21-13 lead, and it was just a great way for them to respond to adversity.
Yeah, this offense relies so much on rhythm, on timing, on momentum, on timing, and just being able to, just to get into some kind of groove. And that's when they really weren't able to do that with those turnovers there in the first quarter. But come second quarter, they really turned things around. Were able to get in the end zone on A.J. Pickens' touchdown, which I called.
You did. Yes, he did call it. He called it right sitting right next to me. And he said, Pickens.
Yeah, exactly. So, I really felt like this is something that, can be overcome. They were able to not get trapped and were able to come through with the win. But, you got to be more consistent. You cannot turn the ball over that way against a better team like an Oregon who's going to kill you.
Yeah, they'll get touchdowns off those things.
They did last year when we turned the ball over 5 times against a game that that ASU probably should have won.
It was a second half meltdown.
Yeah, so this is something that really you cannot afford to do against just about any team. Penalties, turnovers, and just not playing your game. And that's really what I thought ASU did in the first quarter, and they really weren't on the same page, I felt like, with one another. And this is something that's got to be shored up, going into these tougher games further down the road against teams that can beat you and can embarrass you quickly. And this is I feel like something that they really need to shore up. But they were able to come back. The resiliency of this team, I think, is one of their biggest strengths.
It's huge.
They're able to bounce back. They're not able to kind of dwell on the past. It's always a cliche that quarterbacks have to have a short memory. You have to have a short memory to be a football player.
That's correct. I think. Absolutely.
If because you can't be going out there and be perfect all the time. You're going to make mistakes. That's part of the game, part of learning the game. But how you come back from those and how you learn from those mistakes is going to be the biggest key, and especially on this team where there are a lot of seniors, there is a lot of veteran talent, but there's also a lot of young talent, and that young talent is starting to key in on the success of this team. I think it has been key in the success of this team, and but they've got to go out there and learn from their mistakes. And I think that's especially evident in the secondary. This unit has gotten better and better each and every game.
A secondary that's decimated by injury.
Yeah, and they're starting to show up and have a great game. Yeah, they're really starting to come together. I feel like as a unit. They picked off 4 passes against Oregon State, and have to me really started to even in the absence of Omar Bolden, have really started to come on strong and become a strength of this team. And now they're starting to line guys up different places, trying to use them better, starting to get a little more advanced in the coverages and the schemes, and that's how guys are learning. They're getting better when you start opening up that defensive playbook a little bit.
We're talking about the defense specifically right now. In the second quarter, after what happened in the first quarter, they forced 2 punts, they got 2 turnovers. That's Sun Devil defense. That's exactly why Craig Bray is where he is, with the talent. Everyone expected the unit to be to that level. And again, that first quarter, you said short memory. Bruce Snyder used to beat it into our heads one at a time. Don't worry about the last play. Don't worry about the next quarter. Worry about what you're doing right now. And this team showed that. They showed that grit. They showed that resiliency. The defense able to help the offense in the second quarter, get those 3 touchdowns. And what I was impressed with Osweiler was, after the mistakes, he didn't force anything. He went back to being his old self. Just let the game come to you. Obviously Mazzomi's offense is very complex. You maybe have 4 or 5 reads on one play, and he was able to get the ball where it needed to go. ASU goes in the half, 21-13. Championship teams find a way to win. Yeah. They embrace adversity. It's not something to be feared. And in this game, I think it was a lesson in just the 2 different quarters that they were able to overcome 13-0. They didn't let